at one time or another, every other doctor you meet wanted to quit.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, I'm excited to have Tom Burns. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Todd. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And actually, Dr. Burns. So Dr. Burns is a principal at a private equity real estate firm in Austin, Texas, a physician for the U.S. ski team, and an author of the book, Why Doctors Don't Get Rich. And we're going to have to dive into that because I think there's plenty of truth to that. Most doctors I know, that's the truth. So Tom has over 25 years of real estate experience with multiple asset types and has acquired or developed $400 million of real estate locally and internationally. Man, that's awesome. Internationally too, Tom. So we actually just talked about a place you had in Africa. So good stuff. So Tom, there's a lot more about your bio. There's a lot more stuff you've done. So why don't you dive in a little bit more? What have you done, and what are you doing today?
Yeah, sure. I just, I grew up as a guy playing sports, and thought, that's what I was going to do. Right? Every kid has that dream, and there came a point where life let me know that nobody was going to pay me to play sports. So I ended up, I was good in school. That was easy, for lack of a better way to put it. And so I decided to be an orthopedic surgeon and be a sports guy. So that way I could hang around with the people I was used to hanging around with. So that's what I did. Yep. Went through all the training, and it was, a bunch of years of training, and, and then went on and, did my doctor thing. But if you kind of back up a little bit, during my training, was sort of near the end of my training, I kind of saw the guys that were training me and realized, I didn't necessarily want their money if I had to have their life. They weren't that happy. These were the doctors that were 20, 30 years older than I am. Yeah. And so, not knowing anything really, I just knew maybe it might be nice to do something else, something that might bring in some money outside of the medical world.
In addition to, right?
Pardon me?
In addition to what?
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I started my educational journey. I just learned as much as I could and went on and was sort of playing doctor and playing newbie real estate guy at the same time. And
what kind of real estate were you buying when you first started? Was it just like single families?
I think my first property was a student condominium at the University of Texas.
There you go.
A huge fan of condos, but that's what I bought at the time. I got real good at it and bought lots of them. And that, of course, morphed into complexes and apartment complexes, and met some other people, did some office buildings, met some more partners, formed a company. So, it's just like all of us. It's just a growth process. So I did the two in parallel. Loved what I did as a doctor. It was really fun. And, over time, as I was learning to be the best orthopedic surgeon I could, I was also learning how to be a, pretty good creator of passive income, because it wasn't always real estate. All I wanted was some kind of money coming in that wasn't correlated with medicine, that maybe I didn't have to work for, hour at a time. Yep. And then I ran across a book that I really enjoyed. I ran across Robert's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that sort of crystallized the term passive income for me. So I just did those two things at the same time. And, there was a period when I realized, I had a little bit of money coming in from this other stuff. And I started taking little bits of time off. I tell everybody my first time off was Friday afternoon. I used to do surgery in the morning. You kind of take a breath. You're all excited about, having helped some folks and done good surgery. And then you realize, I got office now. So I cut out that Friday afternoon office. And I'll tell you, you talk about freedom and financial freedom. It was liberating just to have 4 hours extra off on a Friday afternoon. That really gave me the bug. I just kind of kept doing that, and the scales just sort of changed like this. And, there came a point where I was making more in my sort of real estate business operations than I was as an orthopedic surgeon. I realized that one day without really looking for it. And then I kept practicing for another 12 years after that, because I really did enjoy my job. So I've since retired, but that was kind of the whole process. And I've met a lot of good people along the way and had a lot of people help me, a lot of good partners and mentors and things like that.
That's great. That's great. And you were, or you're still a doctor for the U.S. ski team?
I still am. Crazy enough, I was scheduled to go to Beijing the last 2 years, and COVID kind of put a crimp on that. So I haven't been on a trip in the last year and a half, 2 years. But all my guys are over there jumping in the air. I take care of the freestyle team, the guys that jump up in the air and do all the twists. And,
yeah, you take care of the ones that get hurt.
I take care of the crazy ones.
Crazy ones. Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fun journey. So take me through a little bit. So you start buying condos. You said some apartments, some office stuff right now. What's your company right now focused on doing? Are you still pretty actively buying? You retired from the doctor. You're still pretty active in the real estate?
Yeah, very active. Gotten more and more active over time, and now it's leveraged out nicely. We have a whole team in the company. When I started, it was me, myself, and I, right? And I was buying things, and I didn't care what it was. If you look at, and I'll go back again, Rich Dad Poor Dad has this income statement and balance sheet. And on the bottom left of the graphic, if people have ever read the book, which I think like 45 million of them have.
A couple of people.
On the bottom left, thing called the asset column. All I wanted was stuff that went in the asset column that gave me a dollar or more in passive income. So
sure,
I bought notes. I bought real estate, some oil and gas stuff. I didn't care. Whatever it was, it would provide some income. But so started with condos, and I bought another little ugly. I never did the single family home thing. I had that one time, but the reason I bought that was there was an AT&T cell tower in the backyard, and that took care of everything. So whatever came from the houses was gravy. Over time, I got quite a few of those. I got really good at that market to where I could buy things sight unseen. I just knew what was a good deal. I always tell the story. I bought one. I had an office full of patients. Walked out the back door, bought a condo, walked back. Patients never knew I left. That was efficiency of time, right?
Yeah.
But so as you're in the market, when people realize you can close, they start bringing you more deals. And then when a lot of people realize that, hey, this guy's buying stuff, people want to come partner. And so the natural order of things is that you sometimes develop partners. The project scales, so that went to buying 40-unit complexes, and things were going along pretty well. I owned various things. And there came a point when I just felt like there weren't any podcasts at the time as I age myself here. But there was stuff to read.
There was no podcast at the time when I started
Yeah. So, and they're awesome. I got a list of podcasts this long on my phone, but I just learned everywhere I could. And I felt like I was kind of bumping up against a ceiling by myself. So I wanted some help. I had a good friend that I'd vacationed with that he was a developer. He was in the real estate world. And I went to him one day and said, look, I like what you do. Will you teach me? And you'll laugh. He laughed at me and he goes, you're a rich doctor. You don't need to know this stuff. But I did it anyway. And so I worked for free for him, probably for 18 months or more, almost 2 years, doing build-to-suits, land deals, land entitlement, looking for land for banks and hospitals. And so I kind of got some good education there, and that morphed into a really large medical complex that he and I built together, and we still own. And so I kind of learned that side of the business. And then I was speaking for somebody in early to like 2001. I was on stage speaking, and the moderator said, hey, this is Tom Burns. He's from Austin, Texas. And at the break, nice couple came up and introduced themselves. They were moving from California to Austin and wanted me to be their contact. And, I got to know this guy over about 6 or 7 years, and turned out we kind of had very similar thought processes and ideals. And that's my current partner in Presario Ventures, which is the private equity company that you mentioned. So it just stair-stepped. I know that was long. It just stair-stepped. And so, now we do pretty large apartment complexes.
So the private, explain the private equity. A lot of people don't really understand what that means. What do you mean by private equity?
Yeah, it's sort of a combination, syndication group, private equity. So private equity gathers money from elsewhere and deploys it to various projects. We started originally just doing our own things. Again, back then the term syndicator didn't exist either. somebody asked me how I started my syndication business. I said, I didn't know I started one. I just ran out of money and needed money from somebody else.
Just started raising
I
capital
just
for
said,
other people.
please give me money.
Yeah.
I still got scars on my knees for begging for money in 2000. So we deploy money to other projects as LP equity, and often we'll do our own projects where we're the general partner. So it's sort of a hybrid private equity syndication shop. So we started an iteration of it in 2008. It had a different name, and we did some projects there, and then basically just renamed it and brought in more employees probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And so now we focus mostly in Texas. We were in New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. We divested of the foreign assets, we'll call them. And there's enough business for us in Texas. We develop multifamily. We bought some, but it's been quite a few years since the metrics flipped on us to where we prefer the development model. So, and our DNA is built in development, and most of the contractors and developers and land people and debt guys, they know us. So that's what we do. We build apartments.
Why developing versus purchasing something that's already pre-existing and maybe adding value through that phase? Why does development attract you more?
Right. And it's not that one's better than the other.
Yeah.
It's just that's kind of where our DNA ended up getting built. 2008, 2008-9, we built our first project right in the middle of the recession, which was a story in and of itself.
Yeah. That had to have been interesting.
It was, our debt left us and everything. It was crazy. But so we did that, and we pretty much had to keep our hands on the reins for that project because it was coming out of a recession, and that was our biggest project to date. So we didn't, we wanted to make sure that did well. Then we started looking at other projects, and we did buy some in the value add world, but the developments kept coming our way because people knew us for that. And so as cap rates compressed, there's been plenty of value add projects that we wish we had bought 4 or 5 years ago, would have done fine. At the time, we thought the metrics were a little tight.
Yeah.
We don't feel too bad missing deals because we'd rather not do a deal than do a bad deal. So for us, it's more familiarity, expertise. We've got people in our shop. We've got 2 people in our shop that have, combined close to 20 years of value add experience with billion-dollar companies. And, just for us, the value add is to take a raw piece of land and add value by putting something on top of it.
Are you developing in Austin or kind of all around in Texas?
It's all over Texas, and we're looking at Florida, which is another state that we would move to. We like the demographics and the trends there, but we're not urban core folks. We're not going to compete with those folks. We're suburban, secondary market. So I tell people our business plan is Interstate 35, and I think it runs right through your town.
Oh yeah.
It cuts the country in half. And if you look at a satellite view, it's where all the lights are in Texas, except for looking at Houston. So we do have a project or 2 in Houston. Most of our stuff stretches from North Texas down to south of San Antonio. And there's plenty of business. A lot of people are moving here. The population's growing. The jobs are growing like crazy. And so that bodes well for the next, decade or so.
Hey, the North Star Real Estate Conference is back. It's May 2nd and 3rd, and this year it's a bit different. We're going to be hammering in on multifamily real estate, and we're going to show you asset management, value add strategies, raising millions of dollars through syndication, and how to find those hidden gems in today's market that are just so tough to find. And one of the biggest things I'm excited to bring you is industry experts that you're going to be able to put on your team so you can hit the ground running day one. So join us May 2nd and 3rd at the North Star Real Estate Conference. I look forward to seeing you there.
I've got a lot of questions I want to ask you. First, let's just dive into a little bit these high-paying professionals, doctors in your case, obviously. But you mentioned you're getting trained by these doctors and you're seeing, and they're probably stressed out. They're probably just don't have a life outside of it, and they're likely not investing anywhere really. There's a lot of professionals like that, whether it's doctors, whether it's attorneys, a lot of what, I mean, are you talking to those types of people? Are you trying to bring them along? What's your thought on, I guess, interaction with them, and how can you help them, or how do you help them maybe?
Yeah, it's something. So, and it's actually, it was sort of an organic story. Yes, I do talk to those people all the time now. And that's the reason I'm not in medicine now. And so as the story goes, my friend Robert Kiyosaki said, "Hey, you ought to write a book. You have a story." I didn't think I had much of a story, wrote the book. But in the process of trying to do a good job, I was interviewing other doctors. And, remember, I had money starting to come in a long time ago. I wasn't Richard Branson, but I had some money coming in. So my medical life was really fun. And as I start to interview a lot of the people, I realized how many of them were unhappy. The burnout rate's 50%, right? So that means at one time or another, every other doctor you meet wanted to quit at some time or another. I mean, they always do, but so they're unhappy. They use words like trapped and, lost my autonomy, things like that. So that's just doctors. As I talk to attorneys, I talked to an attorney. He said, "Look, none of my colleagues know how to run a business." So I wrote the book, and a lot of people started calling. They'd actually been calling even before that. And so many have asked for help that it sort of brought me into where I'm trying to run a program. I run a mastermind, and I put out content for them just to try to help, because a lot of people are searching. They want to know what to do, where to go, how to think about it, the mindset of an investor, who to talk to, who to trust, things like that. So that what happened is I ended up having 3 jobs, my real estate job, my doctor job, and then this growing sort of information education. And I liked all 3 of them, but something had to give. So I was practicing medicine for free. My last 4 years, I did pretty much for free because I didn't work much. I made just enough to cover overhead. So I needed the time. And so that's, there are a lot of people out there looking for some kind of guidance. They want to have hope. They want to know they can do it too.
Yep. Love it. You have, you started investing pre-2008. That's correct, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you've dealt with the recession. Let's talk. A lot of people think we're potentially heading into another recession, or, eventually we will, whether it's coming soon or not.
Right.
Do you have any lessons that you learned over the last recession that you feel are valuable for the listeners?
Sure. And I've been through 2. So I was investing before the crash
So
in
you're
2001.
investing even then. Yep.
So, I followed the advice of, the experts, right? Those, you say, I invest, I got a guy, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I was following that advice, and, I had things in stocks, and I followed the Star mutual fund guy, and, watched all that stuff go to, get cut in half. And so, the lesson I learned in 2001 was really try to make sure you have control of your own investments. And I had no control over stocks and mutual funds and things like that. And a lot of other counterparty risk in that, and a lot of people getting paid, whether I did well or not. And so that tainted me a bit. And so I have just below 0 in the stock market now. That's not bad. Not that it's, a lot of people have done very well in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
So
right.
I haven't done everything right, but I've put it elsewhere. And so being in control of your assets was helpful. As 2005 and 6, 7 came along, some of the people I was hanging around with were warning in 2004 and 5 that there was this funny thing called a subprime mortgage that might cause trouble. Heard it, I listened, not sure how well I heeded it, but sure enough, all that stuff came true. And in the 2008 recession, I learned, one, it's really good to have some dry powder. And I thought I had some, but you can only predict so much of the future. As it started happening, I had a pretty good idea of what was going to go flat or negative, if anything, but what was still going to keep paying me money. And I was right about the ones that were going to go flat, and I was still wrong about the one that I thought was still going to pay me money. So, it went flat as well. So that, a lot of the income stopped for a while. And I had a lot of mezzanine debt out to people that I had personally guaranteed. So what happened to me was I had to go to my bank and get multiple banks, get lines of credit because this debt was, this was a while back. This debt was at 18%.
Yeah.
So I went to the bank, and I don't know if it was 4 or 5% at the time. I took out lines of credit, paid off my investors plus interest. So all my investors got paid and got made whole. That put me in a bit of a hole. And so I missed the first part of the sale. And so, so that has made me be very cognizant of having some good liquidity for when things happen, because, it kind of goes up slow and gradual, and the drill, the bears go out through the window, right? So when it drops fast.
Yep.
So I've got mine in some, secure, maybe inflation hedged stuff that I can access if I need to. So, and another small lesson was that, there's always, you can always borrow money, right? Well, not necessarily in 2009. There was a time for about 6 months where, man, you couldn't get a loan even if you were Donald Trump. Our lender just left a big project, left a $23 million project, and just bolted and said, sorry, we're not going to give you any debt. So got to be really careful. So extend your debt as long as possible, have some dry powder, and it's never different this time. When it goes bad, it goes bad. So.
And like you said, it can go bad it doesn't.
Yeah, it goes bad really fast.
Can't. It will go bad in a hurry.
Will. Yeah, when it goes down, it's gonna go.
So we're at this time, this is being recorded in 2022 here, February 2022. We are at high inflation. I think, 7.5% inflation year over. Actually, it's funny. I did the math because we always think about what's happening today, right now, and inflation is very high, right? But I did the math, and we would have to have 11% inflation for 2 years, 2022, all of 2022. It would have to average 11%. 2023 would have to average 11%, just for us to average 3% over the last 15 years.
Wow.
So we had just such a long extended period of no inflation or very little inflation. And now we're seeing this high inflation. People are freaking out. But in reality, we got a long ways to go to catch even 3%. But I digress. That wasn't my question. Inflation is happening fast moving. You mentioned dry powder. What's happening in this market? You can't predict the future. I can't predict the future.
No.
But what are you doing right now? Anything different? Anything special that you feel like you're doing right now? And do you feel like there's potentially a recession on the horizon, or are you bullish? Where are you at?
Well, my crystal ball is so clear. When people ask me when the next recession's coming, I tell them 2017. So
Yeah.
I've been wrong ever since, right? I don't know when it's going to happen. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to know it's going to come at some point. That's life. That's, life is waves, right? But, I have always said I dug a foxhole. I started this after 2008. So almost all of my debt's non-recourse. I have a few things that are paid off. Now, that's not good velocity of money, but I'm okay with that. I paid a few things off just because, you develop a little bit of conservatism. You look at my Colby score, and I'm one of those entrepreneur quick start types, but kind of beating the conservatism into me. I want to make sure that I've got some, I consider that real estate that's paid off sort of my real estate gold. If I need to, I can at least pull out a little bit of equity to live on.
I'm a proponent of paying off your personal debt. So we're very close, and we're working on paying off our personal house because I just, if stuff happens, I want to be able to live there still.
Yeah. I mean, it's never really yours. The government still has it with taxes.
True.
But, if that's
True.
all
Still got to pay the taxes, but
you got to pay those. That's So personal house has been paid off. All my business debt is non-recourse, and so that's nice. I've got money. I now have some precious metals. Whether you're a gold bug, I'm not a gold bug. I have some, right?
Yep.
But I have now access to capital. If another sale happens, I'll be ready to go.
Yep.
Making sure I've got enough liquidity for that. So
nice. I like it. What's What's a mistake that you've made and how have you learned from it? How can you give our listeners some advice there?
Man, I've made so many.
Yeah, we
Look,
both.
I mean, for sure, I can promise you, I've looked at the prospectus and only seen the upside and just invested and not checked out the
Oh,
sponsor of the deal.
yeah, that's
And of course, I got the type of return I deserved on those.
Mm.
Um, uh, you know, that's the main. I mean, I bought an apartment complex once. These days, I'd probably do pretty well with it, but I bought it before I knew what I was doing. So, lesson being, get your education. People always ask me, what do I do first? I said, start getting educated, listen to
Yeah,
podcasts, read some stuff, at least know a little bit. And if you don't know enough by yourself, go partner with somebody that's smarter than you.
yeah,
Half the pie is better than all the pie if you can, keep from losing the whole thing. So,
and that's the prospectus, looking at that versus looking at the whole picture. You didn't educate yourself. You just looked at the pretty numbers and the pretty pictures and said, hey, let's do this thing, right?
I can promise you, yeah. I've made them all. They're not all coming to mind, but I've got enough years in me. I've made most of the mistakes, so you got to protect the downside. Got to use Warren Buffett's laws 1 and 2. Don't lose money, right?
Yep.
I do use those rules. I've broken them a few times. I'm really good. I can lose my own money. Never lost investor money yet.
Yeah.
So, and that's the power of a team. We have a big team that looks at every angle. That's why I'm a big fan of teams. So, yeah, just always assuming things are gonna go well. Always assuming. I have made a lot of assumptions that everybody has the same level of integrity as me. Not that I'm Captain America, but check people out.
Yeah.
And spend the $2,500 or whatever it's going to cost to do a background check.
Yeah.
Because I have been burned. I can promise you that. One's in jail and one was raided by the FBI. So I've made those mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so important. And I agree. I think most people, myself included, obviously you, just assume that everybody operates a clean house, and that's just not the truth, unfortunately.
Money magnifies a lot of stuff. And if there's a little devil inside, it'll be a big one if there's big money involved.
Well, yeah, very, very true there. Give me two keys for your success, 2 things that you've done, 2 things that you do consistently that have really made you the success that you are today.
2 things pop to mind right away. I sort of have these core values of it's adventure, connection, and growth. And it's number 3, the growth is I always try to do something small, something every day to be better at something, even if it's physical, even if it's one more push-up or read one more article or listen to another podcast, just a little bit of growth because you get that compound effect over time. So that has really worked for me is to just try to learn something new every day. I was reading about the CPI right before you came on. So yeah, it was 7.5 yesterday.
Yep.
So, a little bit of something. Sometimes it just gets tucked away, never gets used, but all that conglomerates and it helps you move forward. And it's in there. Your subconscious is stirring that stuff around, helps you make better decisions, helps you converse better and learn more in the future. And then the second thing for me has been, I guess under a broad umbrella would be network, but pretty much team and partners.
Yeah.
I've had, and I'll put partners under that big umbrella because I've had good partners that have helped me leverage my time. If you're a busy professional, you don't have time to go do all this stuff all the time. Nice to have somebody else. But other partners of mine have basically been mentors. People like I explained. The guy said, "Man, I want to know what you do. I really like it." And I sort of paid for that with time and effort. And so, learning from others and learning with a team has really benefited me a lot. I claim that my success is because I've had some really great partners and really generous mentors.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, when you open yourself up a little bit to teams and working with partners and mentors, a lot can happen. Of course, like you said earlier, make sure you verify the types of people they are, because that's the last thing you want. And who you hang out with is who who you become, I guess, or who people perceive you as being. So if you're hanging out with somebody who's not making good decisions and that's who you're doing business with, that's who you're going to be perceived as. I made a very big conscious effort to try to stay away from those people as much as I can.
Right. And on a positive note, the people, as you say, Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So as you spend time with people that, as you're growing yourself, just whatever, as you're just growing, you'll find that your associations grow and you'll have different associations. And then you'll find that there's a lot you don't know.
Yeah.
And so you start realizing there's more opportunity out there. There's more things to do. There's cooler places to vacation, different experiences you can have, different types of investments. So, as long as you can provide value to other people and it's just a real comfortable thing, there's nothing better than interacting with other people and working as a team.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Tom, couple last questions. What's a favorite book that you can recommend to our listeners?
I got several, but the most recent one I read was Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy's book, The Gap in the Gain. Fabulous book. Yeah. It, it just basically deals with perspective. And, I tell you, as we talk about professionals or people that are out there making a lot of money for their time, right? It could be any profession. Typically kind of a type A kind of group. And, we've all got these goals. And if you put this time goal that says, I'm going to do X by this amount of time, if you don't reach it, you're a failure, right? Air quotes up here. And what I liked about the book was, and that puts you in the gap, meaning I haven't reached where I really wanted to be. But if you just look backwards and see where you came from, you should be really proud of yourself. And it's just a great thought process. And Dan Sullivan's such a bright and experienced guy that was a really good book. So that was the most recent favorite.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good books out there, a lot of great information. I love how he utilizes other people to write his books essentially.
Yeah.
So that's also very genius of him. All right. So last question before we wrap up. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
Interesting. I would say education, teamwork, and persistent action.
Love them.
And I just thought of those 3 right as you asked them, but that's really top of mind.
But that's the beauty of the question is that's where you just gave me your 3 pillars, and those are the true pillars. And those are all extremely important if you want to achieve great success. So, Tom, this has been awesome. Really enjoyed talking to you, and I love your journey, and I love that you just had this mindset shift as you were going through school and just becoming this doctor, and you're like, hey, there's definitely more. So just been a great, it sounds like just a super exciting journey for you. I'm sure there's been plenty of bumps and bruises along the way. You've told a couple and spared us of all the gory details, but I'm sure there's been plenty. But it's been a lot of fun talking to you and hearing about your success, hearing about what you've gone through, and I know inspiring to myself and my listeners. So how can people reach out to you and learn more about what you got going on?
Sure. You can email at hello@richdoctor.com or tom@richdoctor.com. And then the website's richdoctor.com. So happy to talk to anybody.
Awesome. Tom, again, really appreciate it. You have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thanks, Todd. You too.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. But your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it.
And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.